What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, I want Brian to cue up what Steve McKinnon, our labor minister, had to say earlier today. I don't know if you happen to hear any of this. Look, we're what are we, 42 days now, I think, into this strike. And you think now at this point, certainly given the time of the year and given the frustration that so many Canadians are encountering because of this mail strike, he might have simply said, beyond I've had enough, like, okay, I have a solution and here's what it's going to be. Instead, we got this.
After months of conciliation and mediation supported by the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service, work stoppages, and the subsequent appointment of a special mediator to assist with the negotiation of their new collective agreements, Canada Post and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers remain unable to reach an agreement.
Yeah, we know that part.
Canadians are rightly fed up. Not only have the parties been able to show any progress towards an agreement, the federal mediator has now informed me that the negotiations between both parties are now, in fact, going in the wrong direction. So I'm here today to announce that I am applying a solution to promote conditions favorable to the settlement of this labor dispute and protect the interests of all Canadians. Today I've used my powers under the Canada Labour Code. It is my view and the view of the FMCS that the parties are at an impasse.
Wow.
I have asked the Canada Industrial Relations Board, if they also determine that there is an impasse, to order Canada Post and all employees represented by CUPW to resume and continue their operations and duties and to extend the terms of the existing collective agreements until May 22nd, 2025.
Okay. All right. So, Jim, he's using his powers to basically, I guess, do what? Do nothing and just give it off to the Canadian Industrial Relations Board. Do you expect more than this today?
Well, no, the Industrial Relations Board, what he's doing is he hands it over to them, they represent it, and they go back to work. He's basically saying, in so many words, I have ordered them back to work because they can't reach an agreement. But what we need to hear, Eric, from either the labor minister or this government or some element of this government is, it's 2024. Do you know where your post office is? The post office that they are talking about right now is completely obsolete, is completely out of date with 21st century. There have been all kinds of alternatives to use these resources, to use this labor force in a manner which isn't, costing Canadians money through the eyes every single year because, they are essentially working as blacksmiths in a completely manufacturing, in a post-industrial revolution world. I mean, that's where we are. I'm sure right now many of our listeners are hearing this and going, yeah, sure, I paid all my bills online, I got all my stuff straightened out, with either having, direct deposit or whatever, did all my banking online, and now these guys turn around and say, well, they're going to, go back to work. Well, it's going to be way too late for any deliveries in time for Christmas, so that's off the table. So what was the point of this? I realize, and you will not find anyone on this show who stands, more solidly behind the idea of collective bargaining. But what was the point of this, especially when we realize we are not getting anywhere? Canada Post as an entity, as a crown corporation, as a government interest, as a service to Canadians, is absolutely broken. It has to be rethought. It has to be repaired. And the idea that for some reason, and I heard the union talking today about how this violates their constitutional rights. Maybe it does, but it's 2024, and we don't need you guys hammering away making horseshoes anymore. It's time to rethink the role of Canada Post and beyond strikes, beyond labor relations, beyond expenses, either make it work or reinvent it. But the existing article simply cannot continue to exist. It is too expensive, too inefficient, and quite frankly, too out of date.
So, Jim, to your point, does this basically mean, by early next week, at some point, you're back to work till May and try to work out a deal? Is that what's happening here?
That is exactly what is going to happen. And we'll be lucky if we see a deal in that interim between now and May. And what's going to happen is a lot of our listeners will be going through their mailboxes, combing through bills they've already paid for, looking for checks perhaps they asked a stop payment be put on and have direct deposited instead. the obsolescence of Canada Post, what it does, its role in our lives, will be absolutely on display for the next 2 weeks as Canadians get late mail that is not just late, but also useless.
Okay. By the way, I was reading today, interesting story. Other companies, obviously, to some degree, have picked up the slack here and are actually doing quite well, which is not a surprise. You wonder when they do go back to work, some of these companies that have sort of now filled in the space, why would you switch? I mean, if someone is doing this for you and they're doing a good job of it, why would you even go back to Canada Post?
As we say in these parts, Aaron, to ask the question is to answer it. Of course they're not going to go back. They've got a good deal there, especially the figure I saw, and I hope I'm getting it right, was more than $70 million a day for small and medium business for the postal strike. It's been more than it's almost like a biblical number of days, right? It's more than 40 days. That's ridiculous. You can't expect people to come scurrying back for a service which at best was basic, and now people, you're running a business. You have to be reliable. You have to have faith in your suppliers. You have to have faith in your service providers. And if Canada Post is becoming synonymous with being untrustworthy, unreliable, well, you got a big problem there.
Jim, let me move on to the story that I started with our question today. This is that Angus Reid, and I know you've seen it, the Angus Reid study, that basically the survey that shows more and more Canadians are feeling less proud, less attached to their country. And the numbers are actually quite startling. I mean, the way this thing has dropped in the last 20 or 25 years is pretty grim. So tell me what you think.
Brian Mulroney was Prime Minister in 91. 65% of respondents said, I have a deep emotional attachment to Canada. I love this country and what it stands for. When Justin Trudeau was elected in his first year of office, that number had only dropped to 62%. And here we are, just 8 years later, 2024, it's at 49%. And what's really concerning to me, Aaron, is the proportion of people who in 2024 said, I'm attached to Canada, but only as long as it provides me with a good standard of living. That's 37%. In 1991, that was just 19%. So clearly, a lot of people's attitudes towards this country has changed. Who is to blame? Because let's face it, Aaron, you and I are here to assign blame, and I'll be happy to do that. I believe that when you have Justin Trudeau in 2015 saying, this is a post-national country, we have no mainstream, we have no identity, I think that's rubbish. I think we do have a mainstream, although I would respectfully submit that in 2024, that mainstream is divided into two very distinct currents. You have one mainstream that is absolutely sick and tired of every single word that comes out of Justin Trudeau's mouth. On the other mainstream, you have people who are exactly the same as in the other mainstream, except they're fed up with every word that comes out of Pierre Poilievre's mouth. The real issue here, Aaron, is not a matter of identity. It's not a matter of looking at the Rockies and having your eyes well up with tears. The real crisis that we're looking at is the absolute vacuum of leadership we have in this country. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. You need to have someone in charge who believes in the product. Justin Trudeau, well, we're post-national. We're not really about anything. I guess we're kind of a Seinfeld of a country. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre, whose staff seems to be getting assistance from the writers over at Romper Room, basically says everything is broken, everything's a slogan, everything's on fire. Why do you believe in any of this? Canada is broken. How can you expect anybody to have any kind of faith other than perhaps what they were raised with, what they used to believe in about this country? It is absolutely scandalous, and quite frankly, I put the blame where it belongs, right at the very top. I know we have a lot of jerk premiers who are running around also, undermining our faith in the country. But in the end, that beacon of hope should be shining from Ottawa, and all we're getting is either performative blather or gloom and doom, Chicken Little sky falling day in, day out. No wonder people are fed up.
You know what? I don't know what to say to that other than, when you talk about it, and that's what you're referencing here, when you talk about the giant political divide, either left or right in this country. Didn't the NDP used to be that party in the middle? Weren't they the ones that those people could look at and go, I don't like this guy or that guy, but I like what they're saying? It's not even that anymore, is it?
No, it's not even that. They used to be, I used to ironically refer to them as the country's conscience, and they could afford to be because they knew they'd never be elected. So they could say, the quiet part out loud, the good part, the noble part, the necessary part, the decent part, the part that reminds us who we are as Canadians, no matter where we're from. But now, everything has turned into this simplistic, infantile, you're stupid, no, you're stupid kind of argument. And I'm giving both sides here, whether it's the Liberals or the Conservatives. It is embarrassing politically to be a Canadian. I'm proud. I love this country. But politically, I have never been so embarrassed over the politics in this country as I am right now.
By the way, I should point out, Pierre Poilievre was on Elias Makos' show earlier today. I'm going to replay part of that interview coming up just after 5:30. You can hear what he had to say today. I would add one thing here, Jim, before I turn this over and ask our listeners what they think. You know, the idea here that Canada didn't used to be this way. I mean, yes, we've always had these same parties, and it's been that way for many, many years. When did this happen? Are we blaming one person here on one side, Pierre Poilievre, and Justin Trudeau on the other? Was it more civil before this happened?
I think the table was set, as we say in these parts, with the arrival of Stephen Harper. The tone of political discourse in this country took a complete nosedive. Remember Jack Layton, the sainted Jack Layton. Everyone liked this guy, unless, of course, he disagreed with Stephen Harper's policies on Afghanistan, at which point he was immediately referred to by the Tory caucus as Taliban Jack. Give me a break. That's the kind of MAGA garbage we expect south of the border. But guess what? It's become part of our regular political vernacular in this country.
All right, and that's where we'll leave it. Jim, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
You too, buddy.